So what's up? We're back with another episode of the Space Time Podcast, where we'll be highlighting innovation, new products, engineering, design thinking, and new technology. And today we have a special guest, DJ. Glad to have you with us. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going? My name is Deschzunell Catlin. I go by DJ. I'm a former NASA engineer. I worked at NASA for 10 years in flight research, test, and development. I did everything from leading projects, leading avionics teams on projects to leading the whole operation or all engineering operations in the flight test environment or in the flight test sector. Um, I've also, before that, did 6 years in the Air Force, so I have a total of almost 16 years in aerospace. Actually, and before that, I was a small stint at Delta Airlines. But I went to school, studied applied physics at Morehouse College before going on to get my double E in electrical engineering from a small school called University of Antelope Valley, and then my master's in global leadership and space leadership, business and development from Thunderbird School of Global Management. So little well versed in both the engineering and business space. In parallel to my work at NASA, I've also started a few different companies, investment groups. I've done helped with other tech companies, software companies. I just like to stay busy. So I'm also a father and a husband. And so I'm a family man,
Yeah.
I had to definitely give them a shout out because I couldn't do it all, any of this without them. And they also give me the purpose to do all of it. So
Yeah,
happy
that's
to
the
be
most
here. It was
important
good,
too.
honorable.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. Okay, so let's talk about it, right? So obviously you've been in aerospace for a long time, come from the Air Force, been in avionics, and then obviously electrical engineering now at NASA, or was at NASA, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to get into the space industry, into the aerospace? Like, what was it?
Yeah. Before I say that, I forgot to give one important detail or about who I am. So I'm also the co-founder and COO of the Equity Space Alliance. That's my newest
Okay,
venture.
talk to him.
We're an organization that is making space equitable. We are providing the resources and advocacy for startups in the space industry from underserved communities to be successful in space. We are helping companies that are also space adjacent, like Space Time, navigate their way into the space industry as well, so that they can also capture some of that business opportunities, as well as help us move forward as a people. So that's our newest role, the Equity Space Alliance. You can check us out at Equity Space Alliance on Instagram and LinkedIn, and check our website out. And if you also are trying to get into the space industry, or if you have interest in the space industry, or you just resources, please reach out to us and let's find ways to work.
Let's do it. Now make sure I drop all your links, LinkedIn,
Thank
ESO,
you.
everything that you need right in the description. Okay, so yeah, so I guess going back to it, right? So now that's another layer of space kind of added on
Yeah,
to, your
right.
resume. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into the space industry, aerospace.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's been a long journey, I'll say that. So I was actually the kid that grew up always wanting to work in aerospace. I think what inspired me the most, all right, early on was I was in, I believe, sixth grade. Sixth grade, I used to go to a school near UCSD, which was also near Miramar Air Station, where during the day I used to hear fighter jets just scream by. And I mean, I used to love when the teacher's giving a presentation in front of the class, and you just hear just a fighter jet just scream by the window and interrupt all of class, and she has to take a pause. And from then, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to actually fly a jet. I went to an air show after that, and just fell in love with aerospace in its entirety. And as a kid, I said that I wanted to work on planes. I wanted to design planes. I wanted to fly planes. I wanted to do everything in that realm. And so that's what inspired me to
Yeah.
actually get into aerospace. And then shortly after that, my grandfather, who was one of the most influential people in my life, he bought me a telescope, a Galileo, and I fell in love with the stars. And then it really expanded my mind when I thought about the possibility of aerospace, like, how
Right.
far can we fly? How high can we fly? From there, I said I wanted to work at NASA. I wanted to do everything that my dreams was to develop planes and to fly planes and research planes at NASA. And I actually said at Edwards Air Force Base. I forgot how I found out about Edwards Air Force Base, but I said all these things as a child.
Yeah.
And and where I come from, I don't know anybody that worked for NASA. I barely know anyone that actually had a degree. So it was kind of far fetched, and it was cute to my parents. Oh yeah, he wants to work at NASA.
Facts.
Only if he knew. And then
Yeah.
and yeah, so a lot of people didn't really see it the way I seen it, but it always inspired me to push harder and push and go further. And eventually I did it. I did always did well in school, although I did dabble in the streets as well, but I always did well and exceeded in school. So I stayed on my path, and it actually motivated me and inspired me to overcome a lot of life's obstacles. And one day I achieved my dream, and I actually did it very early. And once
Yeah.
I got there, I mean, because I was working in my dream, I excelled. So
No,
yeah, that's
absolutely.
my short story of how I got into aerospace.
No, that's great. So then, and then also, it's interesting because you also kind of made a slight transition to business, right? Like here and there,
Mhm.
right? So I guess like my question is, a lot of engineers really tend to just stay in the lab, right? If we stay
Hmm.
in the lab, we just want to build, we want to develop product, we want to launch product, and then just keep going through the engineering design process, right? So what was kind of your moment when you decided to say, you know what, like I'm bigger than just in the lab. I can actually step outside of the lab, start business, and really just start, bringing my ideas to life on the business side as well.
That's a really great question. I've actually been in business since I was a teenager, and I know a lot of people say that, but
Great.
no, I really have been doing it. And I also started engineering that young as well. So I built my first computer, and after
Got it.
building my first computer and learning how to fix my computer, and it was actually it wasn't that I was a kid that said, "Hey, I want to build my first computer." I actually asked my aunt who worked at UCSD in computer science. I asked her to buy me a computer because she's the person I knew with the most money, right? But
Yeah.
instead, what she did was she gave me the parts to build a computer, build my own computer, and from there, I realized that it was a I could make money doing it. It was two ways I was making money back in the day. So one, my homeboys used to come to my house to record the music. Everyone that used to rap, they used to come to my house because I was one of the only ones in the neighborhood with a computer. So I used to
Got
charge
it.
them for that. But then once people started getting computers, I was the one that could fix them and deal with their software issues and stuff like that. So I started making money that way. So I guess, there's always been
Like a hustle. It's always been a
a
hustle.
hustle along with
Yeah.
the engineering. You feel me?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just stuck with that, and then from there I grew over. Through life I grew in both regards. So my engineering and I grew in my engineering expertise as well as my business know-how, and I built businesses on the side of engineering, and
Hmm.
most of the time they didn't actually intersect. So I have a real estate company.
Yeah.
I work with the barbecue organization where I'm actually trying to figure out ways to bring technology into his business so to optimize.
Dope.
But um, I worked with a lot of different entities that weren't necessarily doing engineering. And it's not until recently, after leaving NASA, that I'm actually helping build out companies that are solving problems leveraging technology. So doing
Yeah.
engineering.
Right.
So yeah. So that's, I guess, that how I got into business as well as engineering,
Yeah.
and I love both. I think I actually might like business more than I like engineering,
No,
but
I
I
agree
like
with
building
you.
product and technologies though. So
Yeah. Yeah. So then, going back to the NASA thing, right? So, question: did you focus on any business at all when you were building it as an engineer? Obviously, I know that there's some, like bill of materials, also called a BOM. There's also like
Mhm.
scope of work, pricing, all that kind of stuff. But did you have any like strategic thinking and design decision making when you were at NASA as an engineer?
Huh. So that's a good question. So I mean,
Yeah.
I always respected the budget, the scope. I mean, all those things that are in direct alignment with the way
Yeah.
businesses operate. But working for the government, you're not really competing like a business, right? Especially NASA. Well, NASA has a smaller budget than most other government entities, but
Right.
you're not really competing as a business. You're just trying to do something novel, or trying to gather research data. So I don't think I had a business mindset while at NASA, while doing NASA work.
Hmm.
My thing is, I was trying to help us accomplish the NASA mission within the budget that we had allocated.
Got it.
I wasn't trying to compete with anyone else. I wasn't trying to really optimize. I was trying to, you know, achieve the mission in the most timely manner. and
Right.
within, of course, within budget. But a lot of times, like most government programs, you go over budget, you go over
Yeah.
time, and then hopefully you don't go too far over scope, or at
Right.
least you meet. Hopefully, at least you meet the scope of the mission. So
Got it. And then
yeah,
what was your favorite product? Like obviously, so avionics, for those who don't know, is like electrical systems for aerospace, right? So can you
yeah.
tell us like what are some of the what were some like your most notable like products or things that you worked on that you can share that you can share with with everybody?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, I worked on a lot of different projects in earth science, space, astronomy, as
Yeah.
well as flight research. There's something about all of them that I really appreciated and loved doing. I mean,
Hmm.
they were all new challenges and very unique in their own regard. Um, but I think one of the most notable is Sophia. Sophia, for anyone that doesn't know, is a stratospheric observatory for infrared astronomy. I call it the predecessor to today's James Webb, which is an amazing telescope.
Yeah.
And what Sophia was, I think you can't really see it too much in the background, but on this side of me, because
Hmm.
there's
Yeah.
it's a 747, and it's a cutout in the back for a observatory, and that observatory was a telescope that was the size of Hubble, so a very large telescope that we flew in the back. And what we would do was we would do astronomy at night, and we'll fly for 10 hours straight around the world, looking at a target. A lot of the work, the research that we did was studying the earlier parts of the universe to really try to understand how we got here. Um, but also one of the most unique things, or the one of the most, I guess, notable things that I was a part of recently was discovering water on the sunlit side of the moon. If you don't know, a lot of people are right now. There's a big push worldwide to get back to the moon, to stay there, to
Yeah.
settle there. And one of the most important resources needed to live there, of course, is water. While on Sophia, while during one of my 50 flights that I did while on Sophia, we actually discovered water on the sunlit side of the moon, and actually a lot of water. So yeah, that
Right.
was one of the most significant things I've done. I mean, most recently I worked on the X-57 program, NASA's all electrical um, uh, aircraft, distributed propulsion systems, using distributed propulsion systems. Unfortunately, we didn't get to flight, but it was a very cool challenge. Creating an all electric aircraft and really understanding and overcoming a lot of those challenges, like the power scarcity that we have using large battery packs.
Yeah.
The problem with EMI and stuff like that with all electric systems. So it was it was a nice challenge for someone like me with a double E background who actually appreciate electrical systems. So that was
Yeah.
dope. I also worked on UAVs, NASA Global Hawk program where we flew over hurricanes, flew over the eye of hurricanes to try to understand how hurricanes evolved off the coast of Africa, off the Horn of Africa. And we also did hypersonic testing, so we did all kind of cool
All
things.
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
And yeah, it was dope. It was dope.
No, for sure. So then I was about to ask you if the Earth is flat, but I realized that that's probably not you probably can't expose that too much, right? But anyways, we're gonna go over that. But something that you keep mentioning, right, is like all these different industries, right, within NASA. And when I think that, a lot
Mhm.
of our viewers that are people that are listening, when they hear aerospace and defense, when they hear NASA, they just think of rockets, right? But you just
Yeah.
mentioned water, you mentioned,
Hmm.
ecosystems, you mentioned soil, you mentioned, hurricanes, right? So can you please
Hmm.
tell us the importance of, some people can call it, multidisciplinary type of thinking. Some people can call like a level of design thinking. So can you talk to us about how just because the name of a company has a certain
Hmm.
mission or industry doesn't mean that they don't take all types of talent to produce and provide solutions. Can you give us a little insight on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I would refer to NASA, or I would equate NASA to a tool, right?
Yeah.
It's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So they have both aeronautics and space assets that can be used to do other work.
Got it.
Some of that work was studying the Earth. Actually, a lot of it is studying the Earth and finding ways to develop more sustainable systems here on Earth. A lot of the resources that that we do in space is to better understand how we could improve Earth and improve humanity on Earth, like medical sciences as well as Earth observation. But As you mentioned, yeah. I mean, an organization, although its expertise may be in one area,
Right.
that area could be used as a tool to do types of work in all types of different areas. Um, so, and then within that also, there's all types of different functions needed to do that. So we think of NASA as an engineering organization, but
Right.
there is a business aspect to NASA. I mean, there are, I know my partner, Janaea Griffin, is in the Tech Transfer and Commercialization Office, right?
Right.
Commercialization is how do we actually create products that can be commercialized, for the nation. And that's business. But then we also have, we have mechanics, we have tech writers, we
Hmm.
have managers, we have people in politics that work at our DC headquarters. I mean, we
Everything.
have the
Yep.
whole gambit. We have everything. We have janitors, we have security guards, we have
Right.
everything. Our actual police, they're agents, actual federal agents. So we are a true ecosystem, micro ecosystem. That's an organization, or we were.
Yeah.
I'm
No.
saying we. I'm not
Yeah.
at NASA anymore, to be clear. But NASA,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is what NASA is.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, before we kind of make a slight pivot into like, some of the other stuff that you're working on, can you talk to us about those two space suits in the back, right? So whenever we hop on the call, I always see them. I've always had questions for them. I think more people
Yeah.
need to see the space suits. So talk to us a little bit about that, and how they're significant, to you.
Yeah, so actually only one is a spacesuit, and the other
Okay,
one is one that is worn in in our aviation programs for our aviation programs.
got it.
So the tan one is my actual flight suit, so that's called a flight suit. And that's the one I wore during my flights on Sophia. And air crew are issued flight suits for NASA operations, and they're fire retardant. They're, I mean, somewhat comfortable. That's the tan one, and the blue one is actually a shuttle era spacesuit. So actually, that's not my personal one. That's a collectible I got from the
Got it.
Kennedy Space Center while there. I actually I have worn it though during a flight. so
Right, right.
during one of so while at Kennedy, I did some skydiving at this
Okay.
one
All right.
center that allowed skydiving at 18,000 feet. So I went
Yeah.
ahead and I was like, you know what, I want to wear a suit to fly to skydive. So I went ahead and threw that on, and my co-founder also, she threw one on too, and yeah, we jumped with that on. So it was just pretty
Yeah.
dope to actually be jumping over, because you actually jump over the cape, so I can see all the launch pads. I can see the 143 that Artemis was launched from, or is it was it
Yeah.
38 or 31?
Bro, look
Whatever.
like
Yeah, I
James.
seen the
You
Artemis.
like you
Yeah.
like James Bond, bro. You
I
out here
felt like
jumping,
it.
jump,
I
jump.
felt like it. Yo, it was dope.
Jump.
It was dope. Um,
Nah, that's dope, bro.
yeah, it was dope. So I was like, you can actually see like all the different launch pads, and you can see
Yeah.
I was able to see Artemis. That was before it launched, so it was actually staged on the launch pad, and you can see one of SpaceX's rockets on the launch pad while falling, and
Right.
I'm in my shuttle era flight suit. So that's
Got
a
it.
short or quick story behind that. So yeah,
Cool.
that's what they are.
No, got it. Okay, that's great. So then, like I said, so we're going to kind of pivot into the next section, right? And I want to talk a lot about really ESO, right? ESA, excuse me.
Hmm.
So, my question is, right? So obviously you're at NASA, and then you obviously,
Hmm.
probably notice there's a huge problem within diversity, within engineering, within business as a whole, and then you go and start ESA, right? So can you talk to me about
Hmm.
what you saw at NASA to the level that made you want to make that pivot, and then how you're going to make certain changes in ESA so that NASA doesn't repeat those same things?
Yeah, absolutely. To be clear, I don't think there's a big issue at NASA when it comes to diversity. They actually do a really good
Okay,
job at the organization. Their diversity numbers are pretty reflective of the nation.
got it.
Now they do have challenges when it comes to the executive level. I think that they're working
Yeah.
to add more diversity to the executive level, but within the overall
Mm.
organization, they do a pretty good job to be diverse and inclusive. But so what I actually noticed was in the commercial realm, it wasn't diverse at all. So for those who don't know, in
Yeah.
2030, it's predicted that the commercial space industry will be valued at $1.8 trillion, which
Yeah.
is it's huge. It's huge. So with that, again, I had my graduate degree in the business of space, and I started speaking around the nation at various space conferences and things like that about this great opportunity, and
Yeah.
I started talking to founders inside this field, but I noticed that it wasn't diverse. It was very white male dominated,
Right.
very old white male dominated.
Right.
So I noticed that. We thought about that. How there's this huge opportunity, $1.8 trillion, enough to really impact a significant population, but it wasn't equitable. It wasn't the money wasn't diverse. There wasn't a lot of founders getting into this environment, and not just that. When we started going into the communities and universities and talking about this opportunity, a lot of people from underserved communities didn't even understand what was going on in space.
Yeah.
They weren't familiar with Artemis. They didn't understand the impact that SpaceX is having. So we recognize a real need to assist creating diversity in the ownership of this new space industry. Soon people will live off planet. We will live on Mars, on the moon, and further into space. And we want to make sure that once we get there, that it's diverse. It's not owned by just 1%. We're not trying to create, a London, a British or United Kingdom all over again, right? We're trying to
Yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
that is diverse. So what we're working to do is just create more founders and more people
Mhm.
and inspire them and help them be successful in this new industry.
Yeah, so that's great. So then, and on top of that, right? So it's a $1.8 trillion market by 2053, right? And then on top of that, right, by 2053, they say black wealth is going to go to zero, and then roughly 20 years later, they say Latino wealth is also going to go to zero, 2073, right? So I think
Yeah,
that within that same context, understanding that there is a lot of problems that need to be solved, and I think it's great that the market is $1.8 trillion, right? So
yeah,
then, and I think that's important to note because ultimately as we're designing the future and as we're iterating and we're coming up with new products, like we need diverse talent, right? And then a part
hmm
of what we're doing at Spacetime is that we are actually like crowdsourcing diverse talent to solve some of these engineering challenges, right? So, for example, the example that I always give to people, right, is how when Google Glasses came out, it was like Google AR VR headset that came out that everybody was like super revolutionary. I think it was like in 2011 to 2012, right? And then on top of that, obviously you have to have some kind of facial recognition or object recognition, and they actually weren't able to detect dark skin, right? And was this
hmm
done a little bit with a little bias? It possibly could have been, right? But at the same time, if there's no software engineers or research scientists or anybody at this level that are actually providing data and providing solutions along with testing, then a
yeah,
lot of these products are going to end up failing. So when I hear you talk about ESA and some of the stuff that you're doing, it seems like this is actually an opportunity, to actually provide feedback and provide, some kind of, expertise that these companies can just spin out of a bottle. When that is that
yeah.
diversity, that is that another layer.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make one correction. I misspoke earlier. I mean, a very small thing, but I like to try to be as accurate as possible.
Right.
So, the story about the skydiving, the launch pad that Artemis and SpaceX was on is 39. So it's small
Okay, no, for sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
So this is gonna be
insignificant, but
uncut.
small.
This is uncut. This is raw.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
we
for
go from
sure.
here straight to
Yeah,
YouTube. So
I
everybody
love
gonna
it.
see it. Okay.
Yeah, just
Um.
yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, so yeah, so I believe that the newest report says that the space industry will have would be valued or have $1.8 trillion in revenue by 2030, and black wealth, according to Prosperity Now, is going to the median black wealth is going to zero by 2053, and median Latinx wealth will be zero by 2073.
73. Yep.
Which is crazy,
Yeah.
especially when this new economy is being built out. It just shows that they're not estimating that black and brown people will have ownership inside this economy,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is a problem, and that's exactly what we're looking to solve. And yeah, that's actually a good point that you made about the AI not recognizing people with melanated skin, and so I think there's two interesting things about that. Well, one, I think it shows that their data set was very small, right?
Yeah. No
I mean,
facts.
you couldn't have been working with a significant data set if you're
Yeah.
missing something like that.
Yeah.
One, but two, it's actually a problem that I've seen before. So again, I talk about real estate, right? and
Yeah.
the work that I do in real estate, and one of my partners who actually I wouldn't they're not racist at all. Shit, that's like my boy.
He's not
Um,
racist, I swear.
no, he's like my boy, but he's designing the bathroom, right? And we're
Yeah.
in LA, so it's this house we were doing was in Los Angeles and I would say a black and brown area, black and brown community in Los Angeles.
Right.
And he goes into the bathroom, he redesigns the bathroom, and then after I go in to take a look at what he did to the bathroom, and he has a shower, a rain shower head, right? And I'm like, bro, we can't just have a rain shower head. We have to have one come out the front. And he doesn't understand why. He's like, bro, I love rain shower heads, and this is gonna have so much value, and people want this. And I had to tell him like, hey, black people, especially black women, they're not gonna want to get their hair wet every time they get in the shower. Like that's not, that we don't do that. Like so
Yeah.
we absolutely could not buy this house. Like we would
Yeah.
have to pay to get that change. That automatically eliminates this house for us.
Yeah.
So it just talks about the proximity he has, although he grew up with us, just that exposure he has to really understand the customer and understand the experience as he's building out a product, right?
Yeah.
And yes, that it directly correlates to the engineering and business, right? As we are designing solutions to problems, we have to make sure that we understand the customer and we understand the the environment that the product's going to be in, right? So we have to
Hmm.
understand that, hey, we're gonna have to, this product is gonna have to recognize black and brown people as well. We need to get those
Right.
problem sets in there, and of course, sometimes it's easy to forget about those things if you don't have those different diverse minds and people in the room. So that is
Right.
one of the very important reasons why we need to make sure we're building diverse teams and why diverse teams have statistically shown to be more successful than homogenous teams.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, and I always say this too. Um, when if I'm going to Mars, right, and I'm building a team on Mars, right,
Hmm.
for to work and live on Mars, I want to make sure I have someone there that has dealt with the problems that we're going to deal with on Mars, right? I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't care to have an MIT graduate who grew up in the upper, parts of I don't know, some nice
Boston.
suburban, right, Boston, who have never really experienced hardship like this in these harsh environments. I want to
Yeah.
have someone from sub-Saharan Africa who's experienced water scarcity and experienced high radiation environments
Got it.
because if we lose contact with NASA because data link is down or something like that, and we need to solve a problem quickly, I want to have somebody who knows these old school tricks to clean water, to do something like that, or to survive, right? And that is
Right.
the power of a diversity. You want to make sure you have different experiences there, not different levels of education, but different
Yeah.
backgrounds, so that you have diverse thinking.
Yeah. And so then, how do we make sure we have diverse thinking, right? Because, for example, right, with Spacetime, we're recruiting talent, we're finding people to solve
Hmm.
problems. Some people say, you know what, we should do Miles Bridge, which is like a personality test, which is a level
Yeah,
two. And then there's
yeah.
like hard engineering, so like there's like this personality aspect, there's a skills aspect, and then there's like a professional, like social aspect, right? So when you think about sending a team up to Mars, right, what are you looking for in ideal candidates? What are you looking for a diverse team, right? Like what is it 30, is it like 33% like each three sectors that equally? Or is it that you want them to have like, different expertise? Like what are you looking for to make a diverse team?
Well, so I think that this answer has to be it depends. It
Right.
depends on the limitations, right? So if I'm sending a team to NASA, especially early, or not NASA, if I'm sending a
Mars,
team
yeah.
to Mars, especially early on, it's most likely going to be a small team, a team of six at most, right? Hopefully we can do bigger, but let's say if we're limited to six at most, at that point we want to think about the skills we need to survive there, and how we can optimize the amount of skills and experiences and talent we have within that team of six. We
Right.
have to really do a risk assessment, and really ask ourselves what's important in diversity in this small team.
Right.
But as teams get larger, you can start incorporating other aspects. So in a team of six, I might want to have a strong, technically diverse team, right? And a technically diverse team may also, it definitely should also include somebody who is well versed in mental health, because mental health is very, very important and
Okay.
living as well as engineering. We have to be able to use our minds to solve problems. And if we're being attacked, mentally, and we won't be able to think freely. But so again, a team of six, we have to make sure that we have the talent there to get the mission done. But as we are building out an organization, let's say you're a manager trying to hire diverse teams. At that point, you should consider not just your technical diversity, but also the cultural diversity that you have within the team. And as try to add as much diversity that makes as try to add as much diversity um, that you can to make as much sense for your organization.
You got it. Okay, so that's great. So then obviously, so I know we're cutting it short with time, but I have one last question for you. And this is going to be
Sure.
to a lot of the viewers that come from our communities, right? So black, brown communities that
Mm-hmm.
have small businesses that obviously, a lot of VCs look at them like, okay, well, this is not going to 10x our revenue. This is not a scaling business, right? So if you are, if you are a small, 1 to 2 size employee business and you're in Oakland, right? And you sell
Mm-hmm.
cookies. And then if, let's say you're another 1 to 2 small business in San Diego and you do hair, right? So talk to me about how you see these companies scaling for the future and being able to be a part of that $1.8 trillion market within space. I know I'm putting you on the
Yes.
spot, but I think
Yeah,
you
you
got
are
it.
putting me on the spot, and this is I think this is a multifaceted answer too. So one, I think whatever industry you're in, you need to recognize the size of that industry, the total addressable market, and the amount of competition to be realistic uh, to yourself about the valuation or the size that you are now and how much
Right.
how big you can become. Because if the market's only so big and there's a lot of competition in there, there's not going to be a lot that you can attain. So you're not gonna create that $1 billion company. Now, if you are looking to become $1 billion company, you have to look at larger markets that have lower barriers to entry or have less competition. So like the space industry, right? There's not a lot of players. I think there's a little over 5,000 companies worldwide in the space industry, which isn't a lot.
Right.
Um, so how do I? So and then you think to yourself, okay, how does my product or service fit into the space industry? I bake cookies. Well, you know, astronauts like cookies, right?
Of
When we get to
course.
the moon and live on the moon by 2030, we're going to need to have cookies there because, again, we want to have the same experience or as close to the same experience we have here on Earth on the moon, right? So, how could I start getting my cookies ready to be on the moon or in space? And that's the question you should start asking yourself. And that's any product, not just cookies. And then once you ask that question, you can reach out to us at the Equity Space Alliance, and we can help build that plan to get your cookie moon ready, or and do other research. Like
Yeah.
there actually has been a cookie that has flown in space, right?
Yep.
What's the name of the hotel
Hilton.
chain?
It was the Hilton. It was the Hilton
The
Hotel.
Hilton, right?
Yeah.
The Hilton Hotel. They have this one of their lines, one of their chains though. They have a cookie that they bake and give away for free, and that is one of the first cookies that has been baked in space and is actually space ready. So when Hilton builds out their space hotel or their space station, which is
We're
actually
gonna
in
have
development
cookies.
right now, they have cookies already tested, tried and true. So think about
Mm-hmm.
that. Think like that. Think about how your product can get into space or any sector, and then once you identify that, start planning out the steps to get there. It might not be cheap, but if it's worth it, I would say go for it.
Great. Well, thank you, DJ. I appreciate your feedback and your insights. This is all.
Oh,
This is
dang.
going on YouTube, Spotify,
Uh,
TikTok. You're about to be a
I'm
celebrity
looking forward to
overnight.
it, man.
You know, so
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. Let's not let this be the last time, brother. Let's have a lot more
yeah,
conversations. There's
let's
a
do
lot
it.
more topics, a lot going on in tech, and space time is doing amazing things. So yeah, I love what you're doing. I'm very excited about space time. I know it's gonna really help change the world. It's gonna allow people from all over the world to work together to solve amazing problems. And yeah, I'm excited for you, brother. So let me know how I can help in the future. And for all those listeners out there, make sure you definitely follow and support Space Time and what Honorable Walker is doing.
All right.
It's
So
been a
this is
pleasure, brother.
a appreciate it. So this is the last thing. I guess I have this
Okay.
clapping thing. I just want to kind of give you a little round of applause. So let's just do it real
Oh,
quick.
thank
Let's
you.
see. Here we go. All right. Can you hear it?
All right, I got it. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.